Thank you. All right. Well, it is now my pleasure to introduce Mel Kavanaugh Lynch, who's the director of the California Breast Cancer Research Program and also heading up our this really broad and exciting community engagement effort that's really central to the Climate Action Initiative. As talked about before, 10 of the seed and matching awards received supplements to really come, not just to continue their work, but to actually come together with others that really had very exemplary community engagement plans and actually work together and work with folks here at UCOP to actually pull out those best practices and communicate those out. And so we're really starting a dialogue today with the first of these monthly workshops that we're excited to host here today. So it's my pleasure to introduce Mel, who will kick that off. Mel?
Sorry, 3 years, and you would think I would know to turn my mute off. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. So my name's Mel Kavanaugh Lynch, and I work at UCOP in the Research and Innovation department with Teresa and Nick and many of the other people you've met today. And I'm currently serving 2 roles. One is as the director of the California Breast Cancer Research Program, and the other is as a special advisor on community engagement. And I'm here today to talk to you about the roadblocks and potential solutions for getting funds into the hands of your community partners. I know a bit about this topic because we at the California Breast Cancer Research Program have been funding community partnered research for the past 25 years. And we have developed NIH-funded training programs to help develop community academic research teams. And we know that one thing that can start a project off on the wrong foot is difficulty getting the funds from the academic institution into the hands of the community partners. But before we get into that topic, I apologize, I was not able to join you for most of today because the California Breast Cancer Research Program also had a virtual conference today, and that's where I've been until now. So I don't know what you've already heard, but apparently a little bit. And I really would like to advance my slides. Okay. Whoops, that went too far. Sorry. I want to introduce you to our community engagement Sheroes. That's S/HEROES. The Strategic Growth Council in the Governor's Office offered the Department of Research and Innovation at UCOP the opportunity to provide small supplements to 10 of your colleagues in the Climate Action Awards, namely those who had the strongest community engagement plans, to share their expertise with you and also with state agencies to spread the gospel about partnering with communities and help people with the technical difficulties that they run into. The community engagement Sheroes are indicated on the list of climate awards by a star. Okay, you would call it an asterisk, but they are our stars. And they're going to be sharing their expertise with you in at least 2 ways. One is through a series of monthly workshops, and the other is by putting stuff on our community resources webpage. So this session today is our first of our monthly workshops. And you get to hear from me today, but you'll hear from the rest of the Sheroes in future months. Now, next month, on February 14th, we will be doing a workshop on Memoranda of Understanding. why you might want one, what you might want it to contain, how to ensure stakeholders are engaged in the process, and what to do with your memorandum of understanding after the project is funded and underway. And here is a list of the other topics we're considering doing throughout the year. But we also want to hear from you. What difficulties are you having that you want to hear about? What topics you want to hear about? So we're putting Maggie Kulik's email in the chat. She's leading the workshop committee. So please send her your thoughts. And our intent is that these workshops be really useful to you and that you leave each one of these with new tools in your hands and new understandings. So to that end, for this workshop, we have posted the slides for this session, as well as 2 other handouts on the Climate Action Community Resources page. And hopefully somebody is dropping a link into the chat now so you can find those. So let's get to our topic for the day. In the university financial structure, it can be really challenging to get funds into the hands of our community partners. Barriers can, of course, arise for inexperienced investigators and inexperienced community partners. But I'm here to tell you that these same barriers also arise for the most seasoned investigators and the most seasoned community partners. Many of us who are here today are trying to remove these barriers so that this workshop becomes unnecessary, but we're not there yet. So we hope this will stand in good use until we do get there. Now, I mentioned that the California Breast Cancer Research Program has been funding partnered research for 25 years. And so I want to give you a funder's perspective. In the past, we allowed our applicants for our partnered awards to choose the financial structure that made the most sense to them. And to help them, we developed a summary of the pros and cons of different fiscal approaches. So this is the first thing we want to send you home with. There's a handout on the website that I'm not going to go through in this talk, but it lists some of the pros and cons of different approaches. And I think you'll find it useful. But as a funder, our approach evolved over time, such that we now use only one approach. We provide 2 grants to every partnered project. One grant goes to the academic partner and the academic institution, and the other grant goes to the community partner and the community institution. That way, each organization has its own funds, its own budget, and no partner is subordinate to the other. This really supports equity, power sharing, and autonomy of the partners. Another thing we do is that we release 100% of the funds for an award at the start of the award. We think this nearly eliminates the financial barriers to actually doing the research. The climate awards, however, are not designed as fully partnered awards, where the community and academic are equal partners. In your projects, we ask you to engage community members, industry partners, and policymakers in this part of the continuum of community engagement, which is a bit less than a shared leadership. Thus, different fiscal approaches make sense in this case. So I'm going to go through some of these options now. Some of you might be asking, yeah, why are you telling us this, Mel? We needed this like 6 months ago. Well, I didn't have the opportunity to talk to you 6 months ago. And the reality is, while you all have budgets that have gone through your own institutional review peer review and the funder review, and they're all approved and in place now. And you might say the horse is already out of the barn, so to speak. You can choose to change your budget at this time, especially if you're hitting barriers. You can also amend existing agreements to insert improved payment methods if you figure out during this talk that you should do that. So at this point in your projects, I really suggest that you check in with your community partners, ask them if they've received any of their funds yet, see if there's an issue, and have a conversation with them about the available options and see if changes are needed at this time. And I want to assure you that Nick and Vanity and all of the Research Grants Program Office who are managing our awards know that I'm telling you this and have all agreed that this is okay to tell you. You may change your budgets. So, really, first rule, if it's not broken, don't fix it. But you do have options to revise your budget to accommodate different approaches or to amend contracts, service agreements, subawards to insert improved payment methods, if you'd like. So here are some of the fiscal approaches that we have seen used over the years. And the first half of these have in common that they all involve an agreement that you put in place. And this includes formal subawards, consultant agreements, service contracts. One of the challenges, each one of these, at least some places, certainly at Office of the President, these are all handled by different offices and different rules and different processes. Gets really complicated. This is not what any of us were trained in as we were getting our advanced degrees. And with all due respect, the people in the offices who handle these things don't always use language that I understand. And if I don't understand them, I can guarantee you, well, no, probably not true, but my community partner may very well not understand them either. Like, for example, you might hear the term flow down. I hear that tossed around a lot, and that gets tossed around in a subaward. And they'll say, well, the terms of the subaward flow down from the terms of the parent award. Well, you know what? In this case, we are the funder. So if you want different terms in your subawards that aren't in your main award, call us. Ask our permission. We can make that happen. So that's an example. The thing that's common in all of these agreements is that they all have payment terms written into the agreement. And people might not have told you this. I know people didn't tell me this for a long time. There are options in payment terms. So although it's often the default that subawardees or subcontractors or consultants reimburse based on, or get reimbursed based on presenting the academic center or academic institution with an invoice and proof that they actually spent the things that they spent or performed the hours that they said they were going to perform. You don't have to do that. Now, it is the case that if you are at a University of California campus, actually the state constitution requires that you get paid in that way. So your campus has to submit invoices and then the state pays the campus. But that's not the rule for anybody who's not University of California campus or a CSU. So our community partners our policy partners, our industry partners can have different payment instructions. And this is one case where you might be told, well, it has to flow down from the award to the subaward. Well, no, you can ask our permission, and we can give you permission to do something different in your subaward. So I suspect that many of you have had experiences like I have had with contractors I hire to work in my home, lawyers I hire to do work for me. It is very common in many agreements that some money gets paid upfront upon what they call execution, fancy word for signing of the agreement. So you can put that in your agreement. Once the agreement is signed, advance some amount of money. It can be 25%, 50%, maybe even 100% of the full contract upon signing of the agreement. You can include things like startup costs. You can have a payment arrangement that says, we're just going to divide this year-long contract into 12 equal payments and pay each one on the first of the month. And of course, you have to be monitoring the performance and make sure you don't continue payments if you end up firing the contractor, but you're not going to fire your community partner. These are, you can also do delivery-based payments that says, oh, community group, if you're going to do 10 focus groups for us, we will pay you upon completion of each focus group, a set amount of funds. And in fact, the state of California and the governor's office has recognized how important this is to nonprofit organizations who do not have the cash flow to be able to front all the work and then get reimbursed for it afterwards. That there is now a state law that says that up to 25% of a grant or contract to a nonprofit organization can be paid in advance of performance of work. So if anyone in your academic institution suggests to you that you can't do this, you should tell them about the state law. Of course, it doesn't apply to us, but surely if the state bureaucracy can do it, our academic institutions can do it. Some examples that we have seen used, as I've mentioned, requiring payment upfront is part of a consultant contract or service agreement. You may be able to include terms that the contract include a lump sum disbursement at the beginning of the project. You can require payment at regular intervals before the work is completed, such as monthly, paying the community on January 1st for the work that'll be completed in January, and then monthly after that, or a quarterly schedule. So these are all options that you can put in the payment section of an agreement. In these, the mechanisms that have agreements usually start with a scope of work. So we have posted a sample scope of work on the website for you. If you've never written a scope of work, if your community partner has never written one, there's a sample that you can use to help guide that. And then much further down in these things. So this is how this comes from a template, a UCOP template for a purchasing agreement and statement of work. And here's where you cut and paste the scope of work for this agreement. And then much further down in these agreements, where you may already have drifted off if you were reviewing it, is a section for payment terms. So what page number it's on depends upon how many pages that scope of work took up and things like that. But notice in this template, it's item number 10, So I know by now I've stopped reading. And this might already be pre-filled out for you, so you might not read it. But notice this part circled in red. You could very easily miss this. It says buyer. Well, that would be you, PI. Outline payment schedule as needed. And that's where you get to drop in anything you want to drop in. I mean, okay, within reason. Yes. Here is an example, comes from one of the contracts that we did of a payment schedule that we dropped into that section. And I suspect this is going to be a surprise to some of you who are listening to this. Oh, I get to do this? Yeah, you get to do this. Okay. And another template I pulled up, there might be these check boxes around payments where you can say payment was made upon submission of an invoice by the contractor, blah, 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 but you don't have to check that one. You can check this one that says payment will be made on a monthly or periodic basis without invoice, provided a schedule of specific payments has been made part of this agreement. Well, make it part of this agreement, and it happens. So I hope this solves a few problems for some of you. We're going to go over some other common barriers that our expert group helped us brainstorm. I don't think that we have all the common barriers, and I also don't think we have all the solutions. So we'd love to hear from you about other barriers and other solutions. So the vendor onboarding process is bureaucratic and difficult for CBOs to navigate. Ain't that the truth? I would have trouble navigating it. And the only suggestion I have for that. So I know that some campuses actually go out of their way to make this easier. For instance, I have heard about one campus that makes a special form. They take the template form and they take out all the sections that don't require being filled out. Because there's a lot of either or, fill this in if blah, blah, blah. Really takes out everything the CBO doesn't need to fill out and then sends them the form to fill out. So they're only filling out and only seeing things they have to fill out. There are some individuals who are great at talking to community partners and some who are not. It kind of becomes an individual situation. But if someone on the academic staff can become on the academic team, can really understand this process and serve as a navigator, that can really do enormous help. Delays in disbursement of funds. We hear it can take 3 months from invoice to payment of funds. And it's true. Again, a navigator on the team would be a great thing. Somebody who's actually tracking these things and gets an email that says the check has been cut or the payment has been released or hasn't been, and calls people and nudges people. Using electronic payment, so much easier than mailing checks, takes less time, doesn't get stolen. Really encouraged if both the campus and the CBO could deal with electronic payment. Staff turnover is a huge problem. So you're working with one person and the next month they're no longer there. They've gotten promoted, they've gone to a different campus, and you're starting all over again. And all I can say for that is keep your email chains, keep all your documentation, and realize that you have to help train the next person who comes in. And part of the way you do that is by showing them what's already been done. CBOs tell us they need technical support that communicates well with them. And that's kind of a universal. We all need doctors who can speak real English to patients, and financial staff who can speak non-financial speak to CBOs. But again, it might have to be a member of the academic team who has knowledge in the process and serves as a navigator. Sometimes, if you're doing a service contract, procurement will ask for justification. How did you choose that vendor? How did you choose what to pay them? So I would start with explaining to them that the budget has already gone through your contracts and grants office, the peer review, and the funders review, and your budget is approved. And they should just process it. If that doesn't work, you might have to try a different procurement officer or ask us for help. We can call and we can have a conversation with your procurement office and see if we can smooth the path for getting these things through. This one I think is a problem with any vendor I've ever had, ever. That they either don't have insurance or they don't have adequate insurance for University of California's requirements. I think a little known secret is that there is a program called the Campus Connections program, and there's a link I'm going to show you for every campus, and they can connect your vendors with an insurer. And for a service contract, the annual policy that the university requires will cost $750. And tell your community organization that they can include the cost of that insurance in their budget and be reimbursed for it. So they're not out of pocket for this insurance. So you can send them, or you can go yourself to this website. And if you go to the original Campus Connections website, you'll hit one of those, please select your campus links, and you select your campus, and it takes you to the Campus Connections page for your campus. This might be useful for you for other purposes. They provide insurance for registered student groups, for vendors and contractors, as we're talking about, for club sports, for faculty and staff, for event insurance. An excellent resource when you don't have any insurance or you don't have adequate insurance. So now my piece of advice for your next research project. So ideally, you all would have known all of this before you applied for your climate award. And while you were putting together your application and developing your project, you would have had discussions with all of your partners about what fiscal approach would work best for them, what their cash flow needs are, how they and what sort of arrangement would work best for them. And that would all be arranged prior to putting in your application. And that's what I recommend for your next project, is talk to your partners while you're developing the project, their scope of work, their budgets, and choose the mechanisms from the sheet that we put on the website and from the other slides in this presentation, to really make an informed decision about what fiscal approach to take and what to put in the grant, of course, depending upon what the funder will allow and what your institution will allow.